Welcome back to Morning Live. With me in the studio is Dennis Washira and Peter Mwangi, CEOs of Pop In. And what exactly is Pop In? That's what we're going to find out in the next few minutes. Gentlemen, Karibuni, or should I say councils? Let's just start there. What are
Let's
lawyers
not be that serious.
doing? It's never that serious.
Yes.
But my question is, what are lawyers doing in innovation? Let's start with you, Dennis. Law and innovation, how does that merge?
Okay, we should not limit ourselves to books and everything. So once you acquire the knowledge, the world is free for you to exhaust everything that is in it.
Yes.
And with the inception of the new technology, so why not pop in?
Yep.
That's why pop in came up.
Okay.
Entertainment
Yep.
and all that.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Peter,
Yes.
tell me, Pop-in, what exactly is Pop-in? I know Dennis has touched on it very briefly, but what is Pop-in?
So Pop-in character is a web application which allows users to book tables at clubs as well as buy tickets for various events. So it has two facets. There's the event part and there's the reservation part. So let's say I want to attend an event. So I go to Pop-in and I can buy a ticket. Or let's say I want to reserve a table at Club XYZ. I can go to Pop-in, see the tables they have, the number of seats, the price I reserve. Or I want to buy some drinks. Maybe I'm busy. When I'm getting to the club, I need everything sorted out. So I go there, buy my drinks, and the clubs are able to see person XYZ has bought these drinks. He or she has reserved table at the terrace, at the regular place, or at the VIP lounge. So in a nutshell and in the simplest form, that is what Pop-in is all about.
Okay, fantastic. Now, Dennis, tell me about the journey of Pop-in. When did it begin? Is it a Kenyan app? Just take me through the journey of Pop-in.
The first in Africa, that is. We have very few in Europe. So the journey started back in 2016 and 2016. So it has been 10 years, several meetings. So before I met Peter, I was in a puzzle. I had everything laid out. So I had to find Peter for the coding and everything else. And also we had to find several media partners. So it has not been easy. So let's say it has been 2 years and a half.
Okay.
Yes.
So now, how exactly did you, both the gentlemen, find time to actually think of an idea, an app, actually code it? I mean, you guys must have a busy schedule in and out of courtrooms, drafting, etc., etc. How did that happen?
We just create time. You cannot be too busy for your dreams. So at the end of the day, what counts is what do you want to be in the future? What do you want to be? So even if we have busy schedules and all that, we still find we have a lot of time in between, let's say from 5 p.m. over the weekend. So instead of having like watching movies and all that, we just sit down, lay out all the plans. So it has to be scheduled, but it's busy.
Okay.
It has been not easy.
Okay.
Yes.
Peter, tell me your
Yes.
journey into law. How exactly did you start becoming a lawyer, and also how do you merge that with innovation?
So mine is quite an interesting journey, but when I was in high school, I was like, yo, I want to do law. There's nothing else that I want to do, but I knew nothing about technology, about mobile applications, I don't know, websites and everything. But I had this mentor of mine. I met him back in 2010. So at one fateful evening, he called me up after 1 year apart. So he calls me and tells me, hey, how you been? Can we meet in town? And so I'm like, okay, this is interesting, all out of the blue. So we sat down he had a very brilliant idea. Back then I was in first year, 2013. He starts telling me what he's doing, and to me it's like, okay, I have no idea what you're saying, but go on. So I've worked with him. I've seen him grow his own company from the ground up, and I was like, this is interesting. So eventually I started growing a very big passion for technology and innovation. Basically, I love seeing things coming together in terms of the tech part. I love combining the technology and the user, what we call the user experience. So there's this technology, now how do we make it relevant to the user? So I decided, how can I now merge this, as you've rightly asked, with my legal career where I'm going? Because not many lawyers are into that field currently. So we were in the same school with Dennis, same class, Mount Kenya University. So he was always telling me about the ideas he has, and I'm like, those are interesting ideas. You should bring them to life. But eventually we graduated and we went our separate ways. I started my own company. So then he came and told me, you remember that idea I told you back when we were in school about reserving club spaces? I was like, okay, what about it? Tell me more. So he sat down, he told me all about it, and I was like, first he wanted it to be a mobile application, but we decided, my thinking was from my experience, because I had been doing that since I was in first year. Mobile applications would be tricky. So I told him, now let's do a web application and then we see how it goes from there. So that is how the whole journey, how it started. We sat down, conceptualized the idea, then me and my team, we brought it to life. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Dennis, just to rope you back into this conversation,
Yes.
what was your journey? When did your interest peak in terms of innovation, etc.? And how did you merge that with law? Were you like running up and down the law courts during pupillage? You're like, I need to code.
Now, as Peter has rightly said, this journey we started it in university back in first year. I remember him bringing his mentor for a session, an afternoon session, whereby he told us his journey and everything else, how he has tried to bring up his company from ground up. So that guy gave me his card. He's Peter's mentor, but my friend now. So he gave me his card. So I guess that's where my interest also picked up from that moment. So from then onwards, I've never looked back. So this is not the first product that I've come up with. So there are several products, several algorithms, several solutions. In fact, we sold our first copyright back in 2017.
Copyright in what exactly?
It was now the currently termed as Vice. It was a betting solution algorithm. So it has been a journey. So you have to think. So but I get my inspiration from people like Mark Zuckerberg. So I realized Mark Zuckerberg from the age of 17 was just thinking about Facebook. So some people thought he was mad, but he wasn't mad. But now every king wants to dine with him at the same table. So if we get inspiration from such people, then I tell you, this world is limitless for you. You can get anything you want if you have the right people like Peter, getting the right people like you. So the world is limitless for you.
Very, very true. Who are some of the partners that Popin has partnered with in terms of making this dream a reality?
We've partnered up with several influencers from Instagram, people with over 100,000 followership. That's not a small feat, considering that these are people who are not on TV screens or something else, but these are just normal people like us who have over 100,000 followers on Instagram. We have several event organizers. Perhaps I can mention a few. JB Events, that's one of the several club events organizers. We also have some radios on board. Perhaps I would not like to mention that on air because we've not yet finalized on some of the nitty-gritties. But we have great guys who are behind us.
Okay. What are some of the challenges, Peter, in terms of idea conceptualization and finally to execution that you've faced in Popin?
I love that question. I think that's a whole new topic. But the biggest challenge, especially in I'll say in Africa, is that contrary to popular belief, the technology space in Africa is very new as opposed to in other countries. And so there's a sort of a mismatch, first of all, between what is being taught in school, especially for programmers, and what is actually being implemented out here, the technical aspects of it. So number one, the biggest challenge is understanding how a technology will be affecting the user. Is understanding the user experience, as we call it. Because sometimes you'll make something that is very, very amazing, the functionality is amazing, but most users, it's very hard for them to understand what it's all about. Or you make something that really works well, but the user interface, how the website looks, how the application looks, is not appealing. But it's actually that can help a lot of people. That is usually the biggest challenge. First, understanding who's your market. How do they interact with technology, first of all? There's a certain demographic that they appeal more to sophisticated technologies like mobile apps, web apps. So you need to understand how people interact with technology. There are other people who they don't have access to that technology. So even if you introduce a mobile app, I'll give an example of a mama mboga somewhere. If you introduce a mobile app for maybe buying cabbages, that mama mboga, maybe she uses a kabambe, so it doesn't make sense to her. So no matter how brilliant her idea is, it does not connect to the end user. So that connection with the end user is usually the biggest challenge, even for us, because we really have to understand how do, for example, normally when I go to a club, how does that process work? I say I want a table, how do I pay? Do I pay in cash? Do I pay in M-Pesa? What is you realized in some clubs, like some of the experiences we had, some of the waitresses do not like M-Pesa. If you go there and say I want to pay with M-Pesa, they kind of shy away. Why? Because it's a technical process. I have to go write down your number, blah, blah. She'll prefer someone who has the cash. I have my cash is 1,000 shillings, get me things. So we had to really, now having that and bringing it on board into an application, that I think is usually the biggest challenge when you're designing an application.
Yep.
Yes, the other part, the functionality, that's the easy part. Yeah.
All right. Dennis Wachira, Peter Mwangi, CEOs of Popin, will be right back to talk about intellectual property and their app in the country, which is soon to launch in August. Keep it Morning Live. Welcome back to Morning Live. With me in the studio are CEOs of Popin, Dennis Wachira and Peter Mwangi. Now, before the break, we were talking about connectivity, intellectual property, and your journey individually and collectively towards making this dream a reality. Now, Dennis, tell me about 3 Dots. What exactly is 3 Dots before I come to you, Peter, on connectivity? Connectify, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So as I said, this has been a journey. So now 3 Dots was another solution that we are creating on small loans, giving loans to guys out there. So we understand that people want financial, like the previous conversation was all about financial. So it means everyone wants some finances in the pockets. That's why we coined the name 3 Dots Financial Solutions. So it's all about granting people loans by your mobile phone and all that.
Okay,
so,
okay.
but that shall be integrated slowly into now Popin. So we shall see the end product once we launch the app.
Okay.
Yes.
Peter, tell me about Connectify.
So Connectify, first of all, we are a technology company. Our vision is to build a research and development lab specializing in all kinds of technology. One of the problems we realized is there are a lot of people like Dennis. I have a brilliant idea, but I'm not a developer. I have no idea how that process works, building an idea from conceptualization to now the real idea. And so that is our main service. So we work with corporates, startups, as well as innovators to provide them with development teams, now the programmer teams, to actually actualize the ideas. But we also create solutions for companies. So let's say like Switch TV, we just come to Switch TV and say, what are some of the challenges that are being faced and how can technology be used to address some of these things? And then we propose a solution and we create it.
All right.
Yes.
So now Connectify and 3 Dots are going to merge. And how is this going to happen?
So both companies will have a stake in Popin, the company. The reason why we are yet to do the actual implementation, there's an investor we've been in contact with who's very willing to come on board on Popin. So sometimes with investors it can take quite a lot of time because again they are busy, always traveling all over the place. So yes, that conversation is currently ongoing, and yes, so once we have all the paperwork done, then it's going to be Popin as a company owned by Connectify and Three Dots, as well as now the investor. We might not be able to divulge on who it is at the moment, but yeah, but once we launch, I think everyone will know, this is the guy. So yeah.
Granted, I know in the first half, Peter, I talked to you and I asked you a question about the challenges. Dennis, in your perspective, what are the challenges that you faced as a company towards where you are right now?
Now, we face a lot of challenges, perhaps throughout the journey in innovation. So a lot of guys are facing the same challenges. Like when I bring an idea to Peter, he'll run away with it. Now, like for instance, we've lost 2 ideas along the way. So like when I approach big corporates, I would not like to mention them on TV, but once we approach them, we tell them an idea, they'll say, we think about it, it's not good, you have to make some amendments here and there, send us a write-up. So as naive as I was then, so because I was still in campus, I was I was so anxious to make it in life, so I was so naive. I sent the presentation and all that, and boom, my product is in the market 3 months down the line. So that's one of the challenges that people are facing. Another challenge that I faced is bringing the product now into the market. Now, remember, Peter's end is them to give me the product as I request them to do. So now it's my work to take the product to the end users and the clubs and all those people. Now, pitching that product is another problem, because some of these guys are not receptive to technology. Remember, these guys already have a business running, so they'll ask you, why do I need this? My business is already good, so why do I need you guys on board? So like you have to have a lot of work behind the scenes to make these people understand why they need Popin on board.
I know your experience has actually informed your steps moving forward, but how exactly do innovators out there protect themselves, and how do they protect their intellectual property?
One, I'll blame the legal regime. Our legal regime is not advanced, as I say, so it does not even protect innovators as such, because I've found so many clients who ask me, Dennis, how can I protect my application? I'm also facing the same problem. So I just tell them the legal regime is not favorable to us, so you cannot patent an application. So all I can do to you is have these non-disclosure agreements, so which not so many corporates are willing to sign up on non-disclosure agreements. Mind you, assuming that I'm an investor and you come with an NDA, why would I sign it? You need me more than I need you. So a lot of corporates are not willing to sign these non-disclosure agreements. Another thing, so the only way one can protect himself is through the contracts. How are you relating to your end users? How are you relating to the customers that you've acquired? So exclusivity is the only way that one can protect himself. The market out here is so tough.
All right, but I do know that the law is not silent on intellectual property. So
Yes.
for our viewers and the youth out there watching, maybe you can just guide them briefly, a brief overview on the steps that they should take. Are there any government agencies that, number one, they can take their intellectual property to? How do they go doing about this? Are there any fees? How do they patent this? And what are the steps that one should take?
So there are 3 main intellectual property you can apply. So you have a trademark, you have a patent, and you have a copyright. A patent is the most expensive and the most complex to apply. Now there are 3 things you can patent, which is according to the Industrial Properties Act, and which is KIPI, Kenya Industrial
Property Institute.
Yes, Property Institute, which is just here around the corner in Bellevue. So for a patent, you can patent a new idea, a new invention, or a new process.
A physical one.
Yes. So now the challenge is, and this is why he says that you can't patent an application, it's not a new process. The way we program the application, it's something that is already being done. So we can't say Popin is a new process of doing things, because it's something that has been already done. A new invention is now something completely new. You've come up, let's say, with a new engine that runs on something completely different. Now you can patent that. The problem with patents mostly is that the price increases per year. So the price you pay for registration this year will increase throughout the lifetime of the patent. The second one is a trademark. So a trademark is basically the name. So like a name like Popin, once we trademark that, no one else in Kenya can use that name. Also, that one has a lot of processes because you have to give public time to actually write to Kipi and say that name, that if for example there's another company that has the name Popin and we want to trademark that company has to be given an opportunity to say, by the way, we have this name, so you cannot trademark it. So it usually takes 3 months for a patent, for a trademark. For a patent, it can take up to 6 months. The easiest is a copyright. So that one you get it from KECOBO, Kenya Copyrights Board. That is usually 1,000 shillings for basic copyright. You can apply for a copyright on an application, a website, a song, a book, so many things. But the enforcement for copyright is very, very little compared to trademark and a patent.
Yeah.
Yes. So.
Yeah. So no, thanks for that insight. The patent, trademark, and copyright, and even from the conversation that we're having here, I gather that it's easy to actually patent a tangible product.
Yes.
So now the intangibles is where the dilemma is.
Yes.
Innovation is where the dilemma is.
Yes.
Are there any international bodies out there then that local innovators can look up to actually say, you know what, if I can't patent it locally, I'll go international and patent this internationally?
Yes, there is.
I know you have explored these options.
Yes.
I do know that.
There is like the European law. You can patent an algorithm and all that. But the question is, how are you going to enforce it in Kenya? How are you going to enforce it in Kenya? Not unless now you're going to engage with an international corporation. That's when your patent will be important to you. But if at all you engage in the local stakeholders here, the European law is not effective in Kenya. So it's of
so enforcement and actually jurisdiction.
Yes,
of
that's
the same is where the problem is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So how exactly do I protect myself? I've come to you, an investor. We've signed an NDA, but then you go again and break this NDA. What recourse do I have then in law? If number one, I can't even protect myself, my patent, my intangible. Number two, my NDA has not been respected. How exactly then do I protect myself as a young innovator who has the ideas, but who doesn't have the wherewithal? You know?
We've seen with the current jurisdiction, the courts have started to respect these small agreements. That is, the agreements that were not so traditional, like the normal sale of goods, sales of products, goods, and all that. So we can see the latest jurisprudence on this Kamene Goro and Rukebe case. So that's one of the cases that are shedding more light on innovation, that the courts are more inclined to the new happenings, or rather the new things that are happening in the society. So I can tell you for a fact, if you come with a solid NDA to us or to any lawyer who knows on intellectual property with a solid NDA, and tell him that this NDA was breached by this corporate or this person, then I can tell you from that end you shall have your recourse. But if the NDA did not state specifically or not the non-disclosure was all about, or rather you cannot explain clearly on how that NDA was breached, you cannot have a recourse. But the issue is, not so many corporates are willing to sign NDAs. I can tell you that for a fact. These people will tell you, you have an NDA? No, we are not willing to sign this. You can go. So since you are desperate for these things and they are controlling the music, or rather they are controlling the game, you'll have to give in and, of course, share your idea without having an NDA ready.
And unfortunately, Dennis, you paint a pretty bleak picture for these young innovators.
Yes.
I mean, it's like they're caught in the headlights.
Now, here's the catch.
Yeah.
What you can protect yourself is through the clients that you are having.
Exactly. How do you protect yourself?
If I'm engaging with supermarkets, I can have exclusivity agreements with the supermarkets. That tells you one thing. Even if this other guy decides to innovate the same thing, he cannot approach the supermarket that you have on board. So exclusivity is the only way to protect oneself. I'm just being honest with people. Exclusivity is the only way. Because, for instance, if I have an exclusivity agreement with Peter, he cannot sell the same goods to you. He can only sell the goods to me. So even if you have a product ready, Peter cannot accept that product.
Granted, but I'll still steal the idea. Granted, fine, he'll get the XY supermarket, but I'll get ABCD. He might be the originator of that idea, and he might get XY supermarket, and I'll get ABCD supermarket and benefit from his original idea, which leaves me the question that is begging to be asked is, then how exactly do young innovators protect themselves? Why would I need an intellectual property lawyer?
So I think from a, not from a legal point of view, but what I've noticed is the first question you have to ask yourself is the investor you are going to, what industry are they in? Number two, what stage is your product? Now, one of the biggest mistakes that innovators do is they approach investors with ideas, not prototypes. Understand? And so the investor, because he's human, he look at you and say, okay, so you're telling me you want 5 million in exchange for 20%. Okay. I'm the head of Safaricom somewhere. I have an entire team of programmers. I have an entire team of marketers. You asking me for 5 million. I can do this whole thing for less than that. So that is the thinking for why some investors will steal.
Without prejudice to Safaricom.
Yes, without prejudice to Safaricom.
Just an example.
Just an example.
Exactly.
Yes.
Let's throw in that disclaimer.
Yes. So, number one, and even some of these corporates will tell you, is have a prototype ready. Because when the investor sees, like the investor now we are engaging, one of the reasons that he's very interested is he's seen the prototype. He's seen how it's working. He's seen that there are clubs that are already signed. So he knows that it's far much easier for him to come on board with us than him starting from scratch. Though he can do that, but it's far much easier just to go along. But if we came to him with the idea and said, you know what, we want to create an application that does this, this, and this, and this, you say, okay, that's a good idea. But what do I need you? So number one, have a prototype ready. Even if it's 2 clients, have them before you go to an investor.
Okay.
Number two, know who are you approaching. There are basically 2 kinds of investors: angel investors and venture capitalists. A venture capitalist will be interested to come in a startup when it's in what we call the second round of funding. When you go for this funding, you'll hear first round, second round, third round. Now, a venture capitalist will prefer to come on the second round when the company is doing well. But if you're on the first round, when you are starting out, it's better to approach someone who's more of an angel investor, someone you know. It can be a relative, a friend, yeah. Yes.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. The conversation is getting more interesting. My director is telling me, yes, you guys are just having a ball up there with intellectual property and whatnot. But unfortunately, we have to cut this conversation short. I know I'll have you guys back in the studio sometime.
Yes.
The Pop-In app is launching in August.
Yes, the web.
And where exactly can we find it? Where exactly can the viewers find it?
It will be on Apple stores and Play Store.
Play Store, Apple stores?
Yes, and the website will be launching first week August.
First week August,
Yes.
also the website.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dennis, Peter, councils, thank you very much. I know you have a busy day in front of you, litigants and whatnot, and also grabbing those tables, getting people turned. Thank you so much for making time. Gracing Morning Live, it's been a pleasure having you both. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Pop-In, both CEOs, Peter and Dennis, who have developed an app that makes it easy to book space for any event in restaurants, in clubs, or any social gathering. And they're launching this app in August, and you can find it on Play Store, App Store,
App Store or www.popin.co.k.
or the website.
Yes.
Yep. Keep it switched. Morning Live continues.